Thank you very much for that very kind introduction. Konnichiwa, minasan. I'm really delighted to be here this afternoon to share my thoughts and experiences with you. I have had a very long retail career, a lot of it, of course, in Canada. And I was not always CEO or president, so I did experience working my way up into different leadership roles. One of the things that did happen during my career was that there was an evolution of focus on better conditions for women in the workforce. For example, maternity leave went from 3 months to 1 year. Now, I can tell you at that time, people thought the world would fall apart because the women were going to be off for a year. And in my experience, it actually worked out a lot better because to temporarily replace somebody, it was so much easier to do it for a year versus 3 months. And we found as well that the women who came back after a year were much better equipped emotionally. I did have the experience where women had to come back after 3 months and feeling very guilty and upset. You know, when someone has a 1-year-old, it's a little bit easier to leave them. I'm sure there's still a lot of guilt. I'm going to tell you I'm not a mom, but certainly have worked with a lot of mothers. One of the very important things that happened at the same time was there were strict laws put in place so that you could not fire a pregnant woman. Very strictly enforced. And even if there was a performance issue, and sometimes there are, not everybody is perfect, you could not let someone go because someone could easily use that as an excuse. And you had to keep the job open. If it wasn't the same job, it had to be an equal job. So again, very, very strictly enforced. And I think this is what really made it work. At the same time, there was a lot of focus on sexual harassment. And again, laws were put into place, very, very strict laws, in terms of making sure that no one was subject to any kind of sexual harassment. As well, there was a lot of training. Companies were mandated, and I'm going to say mandated, to train people on what is sexual harassment, both men and women. You know, mostly the men had to understand what it is that they were saying or doing that could be deemed as sexual harassment, and the women had to understand, you know, what was unacceptable. Now, I'm going to give you an example of something. One of the guys that I worked with when I worked in the department store, nice guy, good family man, but he had a calendar in his office with women who wore bathing suits. I'm sure this would never happen in Japan. But some of the women found this offensive. And so the calendar was removed. There were no repercussions. He was shocked, but the calendar was removed. So these were some of the things women started to say, I don't like this, I don't like that, and they had the power to say those things. Now, one of the things, there was still an attitude about flex time. People believed that you needed to be at work and needed to be seen. So when I joined Toys R Us, I joined as Vice President of Merchandising and Marketing, and merchandising is a buying function. And I had a very talented buyer, and her kids were grade school. I think they were maybe 7 and 9. And she got another job because she only wanted to work 3 days a week. I was on vacation when I discovered that, and I was pretty upset when I came back because she was very capable, and I didn't want to lose her. So it took a lot of lobbying on my part. We had a new president that I reported to who really didn't know me, but I was able to reduce her workload and allow her to work 3 days a week. And by the way, she's still with the company, an excellent, excellent buyer, and could certainly go further if she wanted to, but she's very happy. I will tell you one of the things that did make it work is that she was very efficient. She was not one of those people who stood around at the water cooler and gossiped. She got an amazing amount of work done in 3 days. And as well, she was flexible. She knew that part of the job that she did, she had to travel, so she committed to being able to travel to Hong Kong once a year. And so it made it work, and it was quite accepted in the company. I had another key executive, who didn't really need to work. And again, her sons were the same age, and she felt that she needed to be at home with them a bit more. They had events in the afternoon. I'm sure all of you who have children know that there's special things at school. And she felt that she just really wanted to be there. They were special years for her. And so she wanted to resign. So I didn't want to lose her. And so we worked out a deal. And I said to her, anytime you want to leave in the afternoon, go ahead. I knew that she would get her job done at night because I got emails from her at night. She was very dedicated. And she worked for the company for many, many years and just recently left and now has gone on as president of a vendor company, but very capable person. And I was very pleased that I was able to keep her because it really helped us make our integrated store a success because she looked after the juvenile area. Now, one of the things that was really surprising to me at the time was that the people who really objected to her being able to have this flex time were other women. And it was actually the women who didn't have children. So they came to me and complained. And I said, well, look at it this way. The key speaker or the leader who came to me on behalf of everyone else, I said, I didn't say anything when you took time off, your mother was sick. And I said, I know your dog has allergies, so you're always taking him to the vet. I say nothing when you come in late. And so this made me realize that the flexibility in the workplace can't just be for the moms. It also has to be for the other women, and it also has to be for the dads. Because if we favor one group over the other, the organization will not pull together and agree to it. There will just be some resentment. So I think this is something that's really critical. And I think the Vice Governor alluded to this in terms of work balance for both men and women. So we've got to be fair and do both. Of course, there are still many challenges in North America. And so, for example, equal pay for equal work is still something that I think that some companies are not subscribing to. So I think the campaign continues. So let me tell you a little bit about what we are doing here at Toys R Us and a little bit about our company. We are the largest market in Japan outside of the US, and we have 164 stores nationwide, and we have a rapidly expanding e-commerce business. About 1/3 of our permanent employees are women, 31.4%. And we also employ a lot of part-time associates who are also women. Women also hold some key leadership positions in the company. And we promote on ability, not gender or seniority. That is quite controversial. I know that's quite different from many companies in Japan. But because I'm a North American, I feel quite strongly about giving people the opportunity who have the ability and have demonstrated the ability, because this makes a company stronger. So I think there's some good reasons why companies need to support and empower women. First of all, our core customer is a woman. She's either pregnant or she's already a mother. And so it's really important to understand her needs during the progression of ages of the child. We need to know what is on her mind. Of course, now we're seeing a lot more dads in the stores, but mom is still a really big decision maker in any purchases that are made. So it's important that women are contributors at all levels in the organization and all areas of the business. So diversity is a really important aspect of our decision-making process, as it really does encourage discussion, and I really encourage that because that makes us a stronger company. So whether we're talking about assortments, store layouts, or other aspects of the shopping experience, it's really great to get a wide variety of opinions. And it does create, ultimately, a much better shopping experience for our customer. You know, yesterday I was reviewing some marketing, and we were talking about how people actually look at advertising. And I said to somebody, have you ever been shopping with a child? And she's very talented, but she's single, no kids. And she said no. And I said, I encourage you to go out with one of your friends who has kids and understand sometimes how frustrating it can be. You're trying to shop, you know, your child's running around like crazy, or the baby's crying or something, because that gives you a better perspective on who our customer is. So we're talking about what is the customer looking at as she's going through a flyer, and I said, no one has time to study it, you know, because mom's really busy. The baby might be in the next room crying. So this is, you know, retail. It really requires some unique skills, from someone running a store to a buyer to someone who looks after even the distribution of merchandise. So we're always looking for a strong skill set in each of these areas. And so in order to get the best people, it's important that we have a work environment that is conducive to flexibility. So we offer full-time flex system, no core hours that the employees have to be in the office, and this is really up to the employee and the person that they work for. They have to work it out together. So this allows people to set some hours and not feel that they're going to be penalized. We also offer flexible return to work programs for employees who take maternity and paternity leave. Over 65% of our employees return to work after having child leave. And I wish it was actually more, because I hate to lose that expertise that people gain in the company. So we try to make it as easy for them as possible. And as a general rule, employees are offered the same positions and salaries on returning to work. In fact, last year, someone returned to work, and we actually promoted her. And another employee who did a fabulous job was going on maternity leave, and the person who she reported to, who was a foreigner, by the way, said, well, when she comes back, we'll promote her. And I said, no, let's promote her now, because she's done the job, and if she was staying, she'd get the promotion. So we want to show her our appreciation. So I think these things are really important messages to send to our employees. Sometimes people ask for shorter hours and less responsibility, and that's fine too, because if they want to take a little bit more time, like the buyer who decided that she only wanted to work 3 days a week, we want to accommodate them as well. So training is also important, and we provide leadership training for our employees who are likely to move into more senior positions, and this includes both men and women. So I think it's great to have good policies, but how do we know they're actually being implemented? How do we know that somewhere in our organization, you know, somewhere in a store or somewhere, you know, in one of our areas in the head office, that these are really being implemented? How do we know this? This is always a concern to me. So a few years ago, I asked a third party to do a survey of our women to find out what did they feel about their careers and advancement in our workplace. Well, it came back glowing, so I really didn't believe it. It was anonymous. But you never know whether people really trust those anonymous surveys. I probably always am a little bit cynical about them. So one of the things I did last year was I had a town hall meeting that was separate for female managers. I do a town hall meeting generally once a month with different areas. People submit their questions anonymously. I never know who asks the question. I get some very interesting, sometimes bizarre questions, but I can tell you I never ask who said it. I always take a look at it as an opportunity that those thoughts are out there, and I have an opportunity to set things straight. So the town hall meeting that we had for female managers was really great. It was a great opportunity for me to share my experience and my thoughts. And as a result of that, we also introduced a women's resource group where they could get together and they could generate some ideas on how we can benefit the entire organization. One of the areas where I feel we've not been as successful is in our stores, because of course the hours are quite different. The hours are a lot more stable at our head office, and in the stores there is night work, there's weekend work, and many times mothers don't want to do that. So right now, we're really trying to take a look at how can we get the women back. You know, a lot of times when I'm reading the exit interviews and women leave because the hours just don't suit their husbands, we really need to find a way that we can keep them. So that's one of the things that is a challenge for us right now that we have to try to take a look at. And we've got a group looking at it, try to get some feedback on what we can do. We do have a woman who managed one of our stores, And she's coming back, but she wants to come back as a manager. She's had her first child. She doesn't want to manage the entire store, but she wants to take a lesser position. And that's fine too. We're just delighted to have her back in whatever way that she would like to come to. So the other thing we've also introduced is, we're introducing is training again on what does constitute harassment. Because again, I think that's really important that people understand that. People certainly do know that we treat it seriously, but they need to understand it. I think there's been a lot of discussion about creating a safe environment for women. On a national level, I really believe that the laws here in Japan, much like what happened in Canada, they need to be enforced. Women need to feel that if they are pregnant, that they will not be let go and that they can come back. I also think there needs to be some very strict laws about harassment. Unfortunately, we've had a couple of cases, and when I've consulted a lawyer, because we let the person go immediately, once we verify that the facts are correct, the person is let go. The lawyer says, well, if they do take it, if they dispute it, it depends on the judge. Shouldn't depend on the judge, because harassment is harassment. There's got to be strict laws. If you can prove it, then there needs to be laws in place to protect women in the workplace. And again, I want to stress that things in Canada really started to change when these types of laws were introduced. We have a number of ways to ensure that our employees feel safe and comfortable. We also have an anonymous hotline that employees can use to report harassment as well as unethical behavior. So we have one in Japan. We also have a global one. So if someone feels that they don't want to access the one in Japan or feel that they haven't had the proper answer, then they can go to the global one. And Japanese speakers are available for them. So I think this is really important for us to be able to know that our employees feel secure when they feel that they need to report an issue. I think one of the other things that companies and third-party organizations need to focus on is how to support women at all levels of the organization. Not everyone wants to be a president. Not everybody wants to be in a key leadership position. We have to make sure that whatever it is that women want to do, that we support them. Again, I go back to that part-time buyer who, I know Canada would love to promote her. She's really excellent. She's so happy doing her job, and she is really valued at doing that job. So again, I think empowerment is really about choice, providing options for women and supporting them on the path that they choose to pursue. And again, flexibility is really very important. So by giving employees sometimes the opportunity to work from home or to work reduced hours, you're giving them the option of continuing work while caring for their child, and perhaps later on being able to take on a full-time job or more responsibility if they so choose. I also encourage women to vote. I'm sure that Japanese women make up at least half of the voting population. And I think it's really very, very critical that if you want to see change, and again, I'm going to say as a foreigner, I cannot make change in Japan, nor should I. I think it's important that people go out and vote for the candidate that will implement the kind of changes that you want. And certainly, I can't dictate to you what kind of changes you want, but you know what it is. I just came back from a business trip, and I was able to spend a few days at my home in Canada, and there's a mayor race going on in Toronto. And I'm sure everyone's heard about our famous mayor, Tom Ford. And my friends, have all encouraged to say, well, everybody says, how did Tom Ford get in? Well, because the right people didn't get out to vote. We all say, who voted for him? Well, I can tell you, I didn't vote in the last election. But I did vote in this one. There was an election, there was an advance poll. I really didn't have time to find where the advance poll was, but I needed to exercise my right to vote, and I did. So not sure yet if my candidate will get in. I'll find out at the end of the month. But I think this is really important. Women have fought very hard to get the vote. So I really encourage you to make sure that you take this seriously so you can have your voices heard. So let me share a little bit of personal experience with you. So first of all, my role model is my mother. My parents are immigrants. I was born in Germany. So when my parents came to Canada, my mother decided that if they wanted to buy a house, she had to go out and work. So my mother fought prejudice in the workplace as a working mom and as a foreigner. And I can tell you, I was sort of the odd kid out in school because everybody had the traditional family. You know, mom stayed at home, dad went to work, and my mother was the only one. I think it made me a better person because I learned to be independent. And certainly I think that has always helped me in my career. So people sometimes say that it is detrimental to a child. But I can tell you, my mother she always made sure we had a hot breakfast. She was very caring. She helped us. And she was there for us. And if there was any issue at school, she was right there. You know, she experienced a lot of different issues. And recently I've been spending a bit more time with her when I do go back to Canada. And she tells me some of the stories and things that she went through as a woman. You know, not being paid equal pay for equal work. Being fired one time because she felt that she deserved a raise and should be paid a little bit more. She knew she wasn't being paid as much as the men. So I think this was, you know, a really good lesson for me. I think growing up I never really appreciated this, but today I really do. And, you know, very fortunately, she had a supportive husband and I had a supportive dad. So this really made all the difference. Her advice to me was, no matter what happens in your life, make sure that you can become independent so that if something happens to your husband, that you can work, that you have something to fall back on. And I think that was really great advice. So let me now talk a little bit about roadblocks, because there are roadblocks in the workplace, and there will always be roadblocks in the workplace. I still experience roadblocks. So how do you deal with these? You know, we can enact laws, but you can't change people. You know, you can't change those people who really are opposed to you having a career or advancing in the workplace. I faced that on a number of times. So I just worked harder to prove myself. And you know, when I was in middle management, it didn't make so much of a difference. I never really thought that, you know, something wasn't given to me because I was a woman. But when I started getting more senior positions, it really started becoming a little bit more noticeable because I was really competing a lot more with the men. And although I tried to be part of the group, you know, some men just froze you out. They were not going to allow you to be part of their group. So what did I do? You know what? I found my own support in the companies. I found people who I could support and people who supported me. You know, I still remember I joined one company and the two women who were at my same level said to me, "We're so glad you're here because the head of HR hated women." He said, "Now he can pick on you." So, so it was a very interesting journey, but I'm quite determined, and I had no problem standing up to him. So, you know, every situation is really very different, but the advice that I would give is have a goal. Understand what your own self-worth is. Understand what you give, what you can bring to a company. Sometimes I changed companies because I didn't feel that I was going to go anywhere. I know this is something that is not something that's necessarily done in Japan, where there's still an attitude of working for life. Easier to do it in Canada. But I did change. I changed jobs sometimes in positions that I really liked. But I knew that there were so many roadblocks that I would never overcome them, and then I moved to another job. So again, the message that I really want to leave with you is know who you are. You know, you make your own role model. You know, someone in the last couple of days said to me, you know, Japanese women do not have a role model. I did not have a role model. You know, everyone is different. The men all manage differently. You know, there's just different styles of management. And there's not really one that's right or wrong. You have to be your own person. You have to know what works for you and be your own role model. Thank you very much.